Why did you plead guilty?
I pleaded guilty because in the beginning, when I was in the car and Dewey shot the person, he turned around to me. At first, he was saying, "This is how you handle your business. This is how you handle your business." You see what I did? He said that nobody's gonna mess with us. Nobody gonna mess with us. And when after the shooting, he turns around and said that, "Look, I did this for us. Now you have to do this for me." He was saying that you know who we are. They know who we are. And if it comes down that your parents got money, you're very educated, they're gonna believe you instead of me. So when everything was done and we got to Dewey's house, I said I was gonna go home, and he was like, "No, you gotta stay here with me. You can't leave." He said, "We gotta get our story straight." I just wanted to leave from there. So he made.
And was that crashing down symbolic for the result of his upcoming parole hearing? Well, we're going to have to find out. But before we do, we're going to take a blast to the past, to his April 18, 2022 commutation hearing. You see, he was given a life sentence for the killing in what was a gang-related action. But as it turns out, or what he's claiming, is that he never pulled the trigger. You see, he's actually wasn't involved in the gang. He had actually just applied to go to NYU. He had everything going for him, and he ends up at the party, ends up at the car, and then ends up taking the rap for the actual shooter, or that is what he's claiming today. So let's go take that blast to the past, and I'll unpack it at the end.
So you are Frank Payne. You're classified as a first felony offender. Your DOC number is 443596. You're here seeking commutation of your sentence. You were sentenced August 8, 2001 to a life sentence in Jefferson Parish for a second-degree murder conviction. Mr. Kane, is that information correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Mrs. Jackson.
Good morning, Mr.
Good morning,
Kane. My
Ms. Jackson.
Bonnie Jackson. I'll be starting off questioning for the board this morning. First of all, how old are you, Mr. Kane?
As of right now, I turned 40 in January.
All right. And how long have you been incarcerated?
Over 22 years, ma'am.
Well, Ms. Kane, I'm going to get right to the point here.
Yes,
All right.
ma'am.
You were arrested for this homicide.
Yes, ma'am.
Gave a statement to the police admitting that you were the shooter and was the one who committed the homicide. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. Correct.
And you previously applied for a commutation in 2016. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. Correct.
In that application, did you recant your confession, or did you say that you were in fact the shooter in that case?
I recanted, ma'am. It's the same application I put in this time.
So can you explain to us, Mr. Kane, we have the reports. We know what is alleged to have occurred. Can you explain to us why then you're saying today and in your previous application that you were not in fact the shooter, but you claimed a responsibility to protect the actual shooter? You understand why that would seem
Yes, ma'am.
credible to the board. So I'd like to hear your explanation for why you are now saying you were not the shooter when in fact you told you were.
Yes, ma'am. First, I'd like to say that I'm not minimizing my guilt. I was with them and I participated. But in
Okay.
2007,
Stop. You say participated. What does
Yes, ma'am.
participate mean?
I participated because I'm the one that when Dewey Huang asked for the gun, I grabbed the gun from him and I gave it to him, ma'am.
Okay. Let's just kind of start from the beginning. What happened that night?
That night, me and my friends went to a nightclub because there was 2 parties that night that was thrown by Asian people. And we went to the club in Metairie called Pyramids. So when we got to the club about 2-3 hours later, the other group arrived and a big fight broke out inside the club. So as the fight broke up, the security detained us and they let us go like with groups. They let me go, they let the other group go first, then they let my group go. So, excuse me, So when they released our group, James came and opened the door and we got in his car. So as we was in his car, the victim came, Mr. Vong, and there was an argument between Vong and Dewey Huang. And they said, let's fight again. And most of they were speaking Vietnamese, but I didn't understand their language because I'm Korean. So after Vong and Ness finished arguing, they left. So James went back in the club to get my jewelry. So when we came out, we left at the same time as them. And when Dewey seen them, he got very agitated, talking about, man, they messing with us, they messing with us. So he said, man, just keep going closer. So when we got close, he said, James, just keep following. I'm gonna show them how to handle your business. Then he turned around and said, give me the gun. I said, where the gun was at? And he said, man, lift the bottom of the chair up. And when you lift up the bottom of the chair, there was the gun. So I grabbed the gun and I handed it to Dewey. Dewey was already smoking a cigarette at the time, so the window was rolled down. As we got close, he shot out the window.
As a result of that, the victim was struck in the head and killed.
Yes, ma'am.
Explain to us why, at the time of the offense, after giving an interview to police, claimed responsibility not for handing Mr. Wong a weapon, but for being the actual shooter. Explain to us why you would make that decision if you were not, in fact, the shooter.
After the shooting occurred, Mr. Dewey Huang, he was so excited saying, this is how you handle your business. This is how you handle your business. Nobody ever gonna mess with us. And he started saying that he did this for us. Then he turned back to me saying, now what you gonna do for me? I handle our business is for you. So when he said that, he starts just saying, how you gonna handle it? He said, man, if the police come, just say that you did it out of self-defense. He said, your people got a lot of money, and here he'd been a convicted felon, so off top, he's gonna do a lot of more time. At first, I didn't say anything, but he turned back around, and when I seen him, I seen that rifle glare, and he just shot somebody, and how excited he was. So I said, okay, I'm gonna say it. Then he told the driver, you hear that? If it goes down, they say that Frank did it out of self-defense. Because the more I think about it, I knew he understand that because the victims knew who we were. There was no denying because we all knew each other. So as we go, he discarded the gun. We go to his house. I said, I'm just going home. Dewey said, no, you're gonna stay with me until we get all the stories straightened out. So he called one of his friends and they came pick us up. We went to go pick up James. When we picked up James, the police pulled us over. So as I got to the police station, a detective came talk to me. And when he talked to me, he said, I'm not a suspect. You have anything to say? I just said I didn't know anything. Then later on, about 3 hours later, another detective comes and says that, oh, we believe James and that you did it out of self-defense. I said, I don't know what he was talking about. And he played me James' old statement. So now I'm thinking that I have to go with the plan because Dewey is the one that told James say that I did it out of self-defense. So when I got to the detective and they played me the statement, he was telling me like, oh, do you know what manslaughter is? I told him no. He said, oh, it carries 0 to 40. He said, you know what 0 stands for? I said, I do not. And he says that 0 means that you could get probation. So as he telling me this, they told me they found the gun and everything and they're relating it to me. So when I got there, when I gave my second statement after my first one, that's when I said I'd done everything out of self-defense.
When you talked to police that last time, Mr. Wong was trying to, is that correct?
I missed it. I didn't hear what you said, ma'am.
Spoke to the police and you took responsibility for the homicide. Mr. Wong was not in the room with you, is that correct?
He was not in the room, but we was handcuffed next to each other in the hallway. Like after I gave my first statement, they never separated us. Me and Mr.
No,
Wong.
but when you actually spoke to the police officer, you were in the room with just the officers, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
What did you think would happen if you pled guilty or said that you was the shooter? What did you expect would happen?
You know, when the police convinced me that, you know, that I could get 0 years, I really thought I can protect my family and say what Dewey wanted me to do. So that's why I stuck with saying that I did it, because James already was saying that I done it.
Were you a member of the gang?
No, ma'am. They didn't even know who I was because I was going to a boarding school in Vicksburg, Mississippi. So I was not part of the gang. I just,
Okay. How were you in the car with them? How were you with them if they didn't really know you and didn't really know them?
oh, I thought you was asking about I knew Dewey and James because they're from my neighborhood.
And wasn't that a gang that they were involved in?
Yes, ma'am, there was. Yes, ma'am.
My question is, were you a member of that gang?
No, ma'am, I was not a member of that gang. I was just associate with them.
Because it sounds like, you know, perhaps you felt like you owed some loyalty to a fellow gang member.
Yes, ma'am. I can see where you, in that way, yes, I was part of the gang then, ma'am.
Well, and how old were you when this occurred?
I just turned 18.
And you had been at a boarding school because there had been some disciplinary.
Yes, ma'am. During my beginning of my high school years, I was acting up, you know, because the bullying that I faced, and I just wanted to hang around with Asian people. So I was getting in trouble in my freshman year. So my parents were worried for me. So they sent me to a boarding school where I got my act together and became a national honor student.
Was that the first boarding school you had gone to, or have there been another one?
There's 2 other ones. The first one was the Oak Ridge Military Academy in North Carolina. After the first semester, I wanted to be closer to home. So they tried another one in Brown Academy. And they had a special program I went through. That's where I got my act together. So when I came back to New Orleans there, they found me another school in Vicksburg, Mississippi that was closer to home so I could come home on breaks.
Well, let's talk about the last 22 years. You're currently assigned to the governor's mansion, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
That happened this year?
Say again, please.
How long have you been at the governor's mansion?
Going on 3 years.
Okay, I thought you were kind of recently at the governor's mansion, but you've been at the state police compound in Baton Rouge for about 3 years.
No, ma'am. I came here in 15 in September. So I'm going on my 7th year
Where?
at the state police barracks, ma'am.
Okay, so you're at the state police barracks, but they let you go and work at the governor's mansion, is that?
Yes, ma'am.
That is it.
I work at the governor's mansion since, I want to say 2018, ma'am.
You reside at the barracks.
No, During the pandemic,
Go ahead.
I was staying at the governor's mansion, living there and working there full time.
Okay. And where do you live right now?
Since the pandemic, they lifted the restrictions. They only keep 3 at the mansion, so I'll come resign over here again at the barracks.
And how did you end up getting assigned to the barracks?
I just wrote a letter for an interview, and I gave an interview, and they accepted me at the barracks, ma'am.
What kind of programs have you taken?
I had an opportunity to take almost every course available in Department of Corrections.
Which ones did you actually take?
Excuse me.
Which ones did you actually take?
I took the one that really probably helped me the most was NA. When I learned before that, I was very bitter and angry. And when I took that and when I went through it, I learned that, there was nobody else to blame except myself, especially when I went to step 4, saying that take a more inventory of myself. And step 5 said to admit the exact nature of my wrongs. So when I did that, I gave up my victim that the only person I can blame was myself, and I couldn't blame anyone else. Also, when I took victim awareness, it helped me understand that how much pain and suffering I caused myself, my family, especially the victim's family, that no matter what I felt, the victim family felt twice as much as me. And by understanding this responsibility and this knowledge that I gained about empathy, I learned and I promised to God that I would never make the same mistake again.
So why did you take NA and AA? Were you
Because, yes, ma'am, because the reason why I went to the club, I took the tab of ecstasy and I drank a little bit too. So to make sure to make sure that I don't have an addiction or abuse problem, I started taking AANA to deal with them issues.
Prior to being incarcerated, how often did you do drugs or alcohol?
Very rarely. I probably can count on my hands how many times I did ecstasy and probably drinking also. Because the reason I took it this time, because I was stressing because I got my denial letter from NYU. I tried to do early admission and I did not get accepted, and I was really stressing about school.
So what do you do at the governor's mansion?
Right now, I'm an assistant to the butlers. I help out because there used to be 4 butlers. Now there's only 2. And if they're too busy, I go and serve the family. Also, I help in the kitchen assistant. I prep food or do minor cooking if need be. And also, since the pandemic, I learned how to cut hair. And occasionally I cut the governor's hair. So I'm probably the governor's barber now.
What about disciplinary? How many writers have you had?
3, ma'am.
And the last one was in 2010, which was the 30C. What was that about?
That one consists of, they had like a big shakedown, and they said that I knew my bed partner had a phone, and they used to keep the phone by my bed. And they said I should have said something. So they rid me off for not having knowledge of a cell phone.
And then prior to that, you had 2 in 2005. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, tell us what you, if were successful, what are your plans going forward?
If I'm granted the opportunity of being released, I would like to go to the parole project first, because I know I've been away for 22 years. And I think it'll be a great place for me to get my footing. After that, I'll probably reside with my parents, who can support me mentally, physically, and financially. And they advised me to take my time on what career that I want to pursue if I'm released. But in the meantime, I'll probably do work with Alan Addison in the car hauling business to put income in my pocket. I really have a desire to go back to college to earn my Master's of Fine Arts in Creative Writing, because that's what I've been doing most of my time, is writing novels. But I also understand that I'm no longer 18, but 40 years old. And so whatever really opportunities I have to seek to see what I want to do with my life, man.
Thank you. What can you tell us about Mr. Kane and his time at barracks?
He's always very personable individual. He's always got a smile on his face. Always willing to do whatever's asked of him. We have no problems out of him at all. He's a very well liked individual by staff as well as offender population.
Well, thank you very much, Mrs. Renata. That's all.
Mr. Roche has a question.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Good morning, Mr. Kane. How are you?
Good morning, Mr. Allen. It's good to see you, sir.
Good. Thank you. Have you ever thought about who were in the audience for an extra couple of days because you had done so well with your grades, you had made the honor roll, and you didn't have to go back with all the other students after a break? Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I was granted a day and a half extra.
Yes.
Yes,
And
sir.
so you decided to go out with your friends to a club in Metairie. Have you ever thought about if you were going back to school on schedule, this would have never happened?
Yes, sir. It would never happen.
So have you thought about that?
Yes, sir. It always runs through constant, and I blame myself in the grief that I caused. It is very overwhelming. I know I put a lot of people in, especially my family, and I know that I sacrificed my life for somebody that's very heartless, and it does eat me up inside quite often.
My last question is, you had just turned 18 years old. You were what, a senior in high school?
Yes, sir. I was in the top of my class.
Okay.
I was ready.
Okay, you were a senior in high school, you had just turned 18. Why would you be out at a nightclub drinking and taking illegal drugs?
Like I said earlier, I just went the wrong avenue of trying to. I learned through stress management there's certain triggers, and I didn't know what my trigger was. And when I was stressing, I looked for easy ways to alleviate the stress, because I got the denial letter for NYU, and it really, messed with my stress, and I feel like I was not going to get into school. And my middle school friends, I no longer hang out with them, and the only friends that I had left in New Orleans area was that group. So I wanted to find a way to relieve my stress, and I just went in the wrong way. But I learned through stress management, taking anger management, taking substance abuse, especially AA and NA, that how much that I learned what my triggers are and how to best deal with them.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Roche. We'll hear from those who want to speak on your behalf, Mr. Kane. We'll start with Ms. Grace.
Thank you, Parole Board. My name is Grace Yu, and I am an attorney in California. But when the family reached out to me, I was the executive director at the Korean American Coalition. And the Korean American Coalition exists to help immigrant families really understand government and how to be active. And so we did a lot of voter registration, helping people with language barriers. And when I was first told about Frank's case, I knew I needed to meet him in person because the file that came to me was yay high. And reading through this, it was like, okay, let's see who this young man is. I went to Angola to meet with Frank. And the two thoughts that came to my mind, besides being sort of in shock that I was at Angola State Prison, it was when meeting Frank, it was, he is incredibly calm and mature. And this is when I met him in 2014, so he was 32. Not the same picture of the irrational, scared, would do anything his peers told him to do at the age of 18. So at age 32, when I first met Frank, he was someone who understood what all happened and was able to be responsible. I was moved enough to be his like pro bono help until he was able to get the Jones Walker firm. It took me an additional year to find that firm and have the family retain Jones Walker, where we were hopeful he might have his matter upended since he was not the shooter, but understanding that things don't go the way we expect and the laws of Louisiana, which I know nothing about since I'm a California attorney, the attorneys took over. I spoke with Mr. Keith, current counsel, and understand the situation well and believe that Frank Kang is definitely remorseful, someone who has spent his time in prison bettering himself. He got his college degree, has really been able to be an outstanding inmate, tutoring others. And just because of his calmness, I think he's just a really good person for the parole board to release. And I'm hoping that you will have that ability to see the change in the 18-year-old who helped commit the crime to the 40-year-old man he's become, who's really doing his best to be the son that is supposed to help take care of parents in their older age in the Korean tradition. I also have heard that Frank may come out to California to be closer to Sue, his oldest sister, and also someone, if he were to come out to California, I would help be responsible and watch over Frank Kang. I believe the parents are willing and wanting to give Frank a new start if Frank is willing to come out to California. And I have a great network of support that I can help bring to Frank. Thank you.
Thank you. That's your comments. Before we move on, I believe Mrs. Jackson has another question.
Of Mr. Kang,
Yes, ma'am.
what is freedom for Frank Kang? Does that sound familiar to you?
Yes,
Freedom.
ma'am. Yes.
Tell us.
Yes, ma'am. It was a lady that I met in Angola, and she wanted to hear about my story, and she said that she would like to write about it. So I just told her my story, and I guess that's what she did with the article.
And that was her doing it on her own without any promptings from you. She interviewed you, and the result, that website, is that what you're saying?
Yes, ma'am.
And how did
It just went in and out, ma'am, the speaker here.
How did you know of the individual who is responsible for freedom for Frank?
I met her through a guy named Justin Garnier. That was his I guess his friend, and she was doing stuff for him, and she asked about me, and I gave her my story, and She said she would like to do something about it, and I gave her my permission.
Or did you know what she was planning to do about it?
I didn't know. She just said she would like to write an article that my story should be shared. And that's the most that I knew about it. I didn't know how she was going to promote it or which way she's going to distribute the article or anything like that. But she just gave me an interview, and I guess she wrote an article about it, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, can we hear from from Alan Addison?
Yes, how are y'all? My name's Alan Addison. I've been knowing Frank Kang for 7-8 years now. I came to know him whenever I was sentenced to the reentry program at Louisiana State Penitentiary. And that's where Frank became my mentor. He helped me through many life skills. He helped me learn about myself and my faults, while at the same time facing his own. But I owe a lot to him because today I'm a husband, I'm a father, and I'm a business owner. And I do have full intentions on employing Frank if he's released. I know he has a lot of support behind him. I also know he will continue to share his knowledge and his guidance with others. I also know Frank, I also know he has a lot of remorse for his victims and his victims' family. And I know that's probably why he strives to help others like he did myself and many others that were in the reentry program in Angola. Like I said, Frank's he's not only a mentor, he's a great friend, a great person. And I also know he's going to be a productive and proactive member of society. I thank y'all.
Thank you for taking the time to give us those remarks. We appreciate it.
Thank
Sue Kang, Mr. Kang's sister.
Hi, good morning or good afternoon.
Go ahead.
Okay. I just want to say a few words on my brother's behalf. Growing up, Frank was sensitive and a quiet boy. I remember during Halloween going to haunted houses and Frank hiding behind my back because he was so scared. In the last 20 years during his incarceration, he has earned his bachelor's degree with a cumulative grade point average of 3.98, as well as numerous certifications. Not only was he busy studying, but also teaching GED to other fellow inmates and participating as a mentor in the reentry court during his stay at Angola. You just heard a statement from one of the mentees he's guided. Frank gained his trustee status and was able to transfer to the trustee program at the police state barracks in Zachary and is currently working at the mansion. Frank is deeply remorseful for his actions to the victim and his family. I believe he has changed from that quiet, sensitive boy to a patient, respectful, humble man. He is a great brother who has paid dearly for his actions and deserves a second chance at life. If given the opportunity, his transition to the outside world will be a smooth process with the support from his family and friends. I am willing to be part of that support network if he decides to come live with me in LA. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And we have Mr. Kang's mother and father who are there with you today in support. We'll hear from the opposition now, the DA's office, Mr. Meyer.
Good morning, Randy Meyer, Assistant DA in Jefferson Parish. And we're strongly opposed to Mr. Kang's request for a commutation of his sentence. The first step in rehabilitation is accepting responsibility for the crime that was committed. Mr. Kang has not accepted responsibility. I think his statements today support that fact, that he's not accepted responsibility for the crime of the murder of Juan Nguyen. He's accepted responsibility for his actions that resulted in Mr. Huang getting a lesser sentence, in lying to the system to let that happen. What's occurred here in this case is Mr. King has blamed the DA's office for the predicament that he is in. He's blamed his defense attorney. He's blamed the criminal justice system, and he's blamed Mr. Huang. He has lied in his attempts to thwart justice. After this murder occurred, Mr. Huang and Mr. O and Mr. Kang all made an agreement where they would lie as to what occurred in this case, that Mr. Kang would accept responsibility so that they would get lesser sentences. In November of 2000, Mr. Kang was tried. He testified at trial and said that he shot in self-defense. The jury obviously didn't believe him, and he was convicted of second-degree murder. Mr. Huang pled guilty the following July 2001 and pled guilty to manslaughter and received a 12-year sentence. Mr. Kang was then sentenced in November of 2001 to life in prison. He's here today not accepting responsibility for what he has done, but trying to get this board to ratify essentially the agreement that he made to thwart justice, to have a murderer go free and for him to get a lesser sentence, as who he claims is the murderer did. And if we look at what he has said in his application, I think that supports, that statement supports what he is trying to do. In his application, Mr. Kang wants us to believe that he innocently ended up in Mr. O's car. But there are two important facts regarding the car, and the third one he admitted to, which is that he passed the gun from the back seat to Mr. Huang in the front seat just before the shooting took place. Mr. Kang says in his applications that Ms. Kim offered to bring him home after the fights in the club and in the parking lot. Ms. Kim was his cousin, is his cousin. Kang says that he told her he was going to go home with Charlie Kang, who was a friend who lived in the neighborhood, no relation, although they have the same name. However, Ms. Kim states in her federal court application, in the federal court affidavit that was filed in his post-conviction proceedings, that after she offered for her to drive him home, that Frank said he was going to stay with Huang and O. Completely contrary to his statement that I'm gonna go home with Charlie, who lives in my neighborhood. So what did Charlie say? And some of these facts came out as well because they approached our office in 2016, and our first assistant DA and the chief investigator did an extensive investigation on this case, and they spoke with both Ms. Kim and Charlie Kang. Charlie Kang states, Frank Kang states in his application that he didn't go home with Charlie Kang because he couldn't find him after the fight. And so he went home with O and Huang. However, Charlie states in his federal court affidavit that was filed in the post-conviction proceedings that he went to his car, that, quote, I went to my car that was parked next to O. He also says, quote, I got in my car by myself and followed James O out of the parking lot. So Charlie Kang's car was parked next to O's vehicle, but Kang says that he couldn't find Charlie Kang to ride home with him. So that's why he went with James O and Huang. It shows that he wanted to be with those two gentlemen. Then the final fact that's highly important is when asked for the gun, that Huang turned around asking for the gun, he had to reach under a seat, get the gun, and pass it to Huang in the front seat for Huang to shoot. I think these facts clearly show, at best, that he was guilty of being a principal to second-degree murder. The sentence for being a principal to second-degree murder is life in prison, which is the sentence that he received. I know Mr. Kang has done a lot since he's been incarcerated. And I commend him on that, and I commend him on his actions while he's been there and the programs that he's taken, the things that he's done. But until he can accept the facts of the case that and his participation in the murder of Mr. Nguyen, he can't be rehabilitated. And until that time, he shouldn't be granted relief that will do nothing but condone his deceitful actions in the justice system to obtain lesser sentences for people who are participated in these murders. And I think if we look at the Frank Kang Freedom webpage too, with Mr. Kang states that he wrote his story that someone else then published, that agrees with my comments, that he has not accepted responsibility for this murder. And until that time, he cannot be rehabilitated. And we ask that his request for commutation be denied. And lastly, there is strong victim opposition. I had spoken with the victims who Ms. Renata said were present, and they were just too emotional, they felt, to speak today, but they are strongly opposed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Meyer. Mr. Kang, is there a statement you'd like to make to the pardon board before we turn it over to Mr. Nordike?
Yes, ma'am. First, I'd like to give my sincere condolence to the Vung family. I'm sorry that I was a coward and I lied. There's a lot of pressure and there's so much emotions that went with me. And I know that I could have prevented him. I could have saved him that night. I could have not even do it. I could have said anything. But I was so scared and out of my mind. I was on drugs, but that's not an excuse. I take full responsibility because I played as much as the driver and the shooter because I gave him the gun. I know that there's nothing I can say to the family of how much pain that I caused them, but I am remorseful every single day. And I try to make amends by helping out others. And I'm just so sorry for what I did. I know my case is so muddled and so confusing, but I have this, I just hope that, the board has mercy upon me. I apologize to y'all too in the state of Louisiana for my deceitfulness on trying to manipulate the justice system. I understand the sentence that was levied upon me, and I accept that because I took that burden on because I let a murderer, somebody, which I can also say I was a participant of a murder. And I'm sorry that I did that to the state of Louisiana. And finally, I have to apologize to my parents. They did not raise a bad son. I just keep making mistakes. And I'm trying to do everything to, make better choices. I'm just so sorry. That's why I keep studying, trying to gain knowledge so I can make better choices. I'm trying to get patience. And I just said, I know you gave me everything in life, and I'm just so sorry that I just threw it all back in your face. But I apologize to everyone, Louisiana, and once again, I am so sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Kang. Mr. Nordike?
Thank you. We've had a trial within a trial today, and I want to start by addressing a couple of the things that Judge Jackson raised initially. In well over 600 cases, this is the first time I've put post-conviction material in a brief or in the attachments. And I did it for two reasons. One, the client has disposition, but secondly, the federal magistrate found a colorable claim that Frank was not the shooter, and the magistrate stayed the case. As those of us that have been involved in this world know, getting a federal magistrate to stay a case that's not fully exhausted is a very difficult thing. And the fact that it was stayed for a colorable claim, I think, is indicative of where truth might lie. The second point I want to make with the same regard, I think goes to something that Ms. Jackson said as well as Mr. Meyer, and that is the acceptance of responsibility. I heard Frank clearly take responsibility and accept his role in the murder in the initial discussion with the board. He clearly admits that he handed the weapon to the shooter, and that alone under Louisiana law should be sufficient for second-degree murder. He is not disputing his culpability. He is only disputing his role in the culpability. So, having said that, you've got a young man who has only got 3 write-ups in his entire time he was here. He's been a trustee for years. He's been at the state police barracks for 7 years. He's been at the mansion for about 4. He cuts the governor's hair. It's hard to imagine somebody being more trusted than that. He's been through every program that you might ask him to take, particularly those that would prevent a relapse, such as Celebrate Recovery, AA, anger management. He's been a tutor. He's been involved in victim awareness. He's guilty of being age 18 at the time of this offense and of doing the really stupid criminal things that he did to involve himself in that crime. But more than anything, he was being 18. And I would ask the board to consider his age at the time and grant him a commutation with parole eligibility. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Northright. Is the board prepared to vote?
Madam Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to go into executive session to discuss confidential matters.
All right, we're back in regular session, and we are prepared to vote. We'll be starting with Mrs. Jackson.
All right, Mr. Kang, I've listened to you, and I am convinced that you were not actually the shooter, but under Louisiana law as a principal, you would also be equally as guilty under the law. But in terms of your actual actions, I do not believe that you were a shooter. And so I take that into consideration. I take into consideration your excellent institutional record, only 3 write-ups, trust positions that you have held for the last 7 years. And I also take into consideration your age at the time of this offense, your level or lack of maturity during that time. And I do believe that there was a considerable amount of pressure that you felt to accept responsibility for something that you had not personally done. So, with that being said, I do think you're entitled to some relief. So my vote today would be to grant a commutation of sentence to 99 years with parole eligibility after having served 25 years. And that would be my recommendation in your case.
Thank you, Mrs. Jackson. Mr. Roche.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Mr. Kane, my vote is the same for the same reasons. Commute to 99 years with parole eligibility after serving 25 years.
Mr. Roche, Mr. Norvell.
Kang, after having listened to all of the comments from everyone, my vote likewise is the same. Commute to 99 years with parole eligibility after serving 25 years. Good luck to you.
Mr. Freeman.
I concur with my colleague and also vote for the grant with parole eligibility after 25.
Mr. Kang, I do concur with my colleagues. My vote also is to make the recommendation to commute your sentence to 99 years with parole eligibility after serving 25. based on all the reasons that's already been stated. So we'll make that recommendation on your behalf. Good luck to you, sir.
Thank the board. Appreciate it.
And that concludes our business at the barracks. So we will adjourn from there at 12:35. Thanks for attending.
Hey, they signed off on it, and now we're going to fast forward to the present day, December 10th, 2024. Okay, so this hearing took place April 18, 2022, so it's a little more than 2 years that he now has a chance for this parole hearing. Now, let's keep in mind, it is a new governor. So the new governor picked a new board. They have different allegiances, although Ms. Renata is still on this present board, and we'll see here again today. But it's what I'm trying to say is that it's not a shoo-in that he will get paroled because it's a new governor, and you never know what's going to happen. And this parole board has been really denying most. Now, what did you think? I happen to agree with what Miss Bonnie Jackson said completely. I don't believe he was the shooter. He would have gotten time anyways. I mean, just look, for me watching this case, it's a tragedy all the way around. Again, imagine you're raising a child. Your child is doing everything that you envision. Just applied to NYU, got denied, but he would have gotten into another great school. And then you go, and then everything falls apart. And the next thing you know it, your child's in Angola. And I guess what is a little bit crazy about this case, and I'm not going to go in too much in the unpacking. We can watch the parole hearing and then we can do the unpacking. We have that website that Miss Bonnie Jackson brought up that I can review with you. But again, it's crazy. It's not like he said, hey, I was the shooter and then changed his mind. I mean, he went to trial still claiming that it was in self-defense. And that's a long time to think about how you're going to handle something. And that's really why Randy Meyer, the assistant DA, is, I think, taking this very personally. It's like, he's like, well, the guy who then did the shooting is out in the streets. You know, you're making a mockery of the system. And that part I hear, but at the same time, man, I don't think anyways, I think they did the right thing in the commutation. And but before we jump into the parole hearing, I'm excited to share with you Mama Do. Hello, everyone, and guess who's back? It's the one and only Mama Do.
Hello.
And the last time we did a Mama Do interview, it was 7 months ago when we got Mama Do, the Roses Are Forever. Some of you might remember, or some of you, this might be the first time. Mrs. Mandu, take the stage.
Wow, wow, wow.
Here she
Hi,
is.
everyone.
Oh my God. Isn't she
I heard
beautiful?
so much about you guys. And so when he said he wanted me to come on, I was a little hesitant, but I said, you know what? He said that you guys are amazing, a great community. And
plus, right. If there's anything I can help encourage you on, wouldn't it be?
Wow. Yeah, so just so you guys have reference of what forever actually means, these are still alive and kicking. They still smell how they smell when we first opened them up. It's so crazy. I'm not a fan of red. So when they reached back out to Mandu here, they said, choose another one. So I'm actually going to be seeing it for the first time along with you guys.
And that's true. And so what we're doing here is that Roses Forever, the sponsor of this parole hearing, which is amazing. The kind of funny part is that, like you see, we got these roses and they're forever. And every time Mama Do sees them, she's kept wondering why they're not dying because she doesn't like red roses.
I really kind of wanted them to die.
They really don't die. And I thought that I was like the superhero, the gift that keeps on giving, but finally
It was nice.
Yeah. But eventually told me when Roses reached out, I'm like, oh, should we get I don't actually like red. That's why. So, I don't know. They say so. We got a new one. And it comes in this. And
nice
Mama Do has not seen them yet.
Nope.
So this is 100% authentic right now. Okay. This is a moment
So
of.
I'm going to tell you what my favorite color is before well, you know my favorite color.
Yeah.
So it better be my favorite color.
Right? Of course I know your favorite color.
So my favorite color is, oh goodness, this is the pressure, pink. We better hope
Is
so.
it pink?
What? My favorite color is white. I lied.
Oh, but it
They
is
are
nice.
beautiful. Oh, can
they're
you see?
good.
Oh, no.
Here, put it in the. There you go. I guess
Can
white's
you
not
see that?
appropriate.
White can go both ways,
Did I
you know? Like,
They are. They smell real. That's the thing, and they
Yeah.
are real.
they're very pretty.
What do you think they put in them to make them last forever?
I'm really not sure, but I said this before and I'll say it again. Give me some of that.
Well, you do last forever. Look at this. I am one lucky mandu, as they say. But
Lucky mom,
oh. So yeah, and the cool thing is that so this is the second time we're doing this, and there's a link below in the description. It helps me out. If you're gonna get roses for your loved one, get the right color.
Oh yeah, another 7 months. I have to look at a color that I don't know. I'm just joking. White is good. It's beautiful. Red is good. It's beautiful.
Thank you, like you.
Okay.
and use the link below, and I'll get a little something. And I think you get a discount pass along. I'm not 100. I should have double checked, but I'll let you know in the description. And you get roses. It's the gift that keeps on giving, especially if the color is.
You could just re-gift it.
Or
It's the holiday season.
Right, that's true. We're probably gonna re-gift the red ones now.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
You can do that.
But there you go. Anything else? Any final words from Mama Do?
No. Bye, guys.
Isn't Mom Do just amazing? So if you hang on to the end, I'm going to share with you some bloopers, or I should say more like behind the scenes, because it was all taken in one take. But we're going to go jump back into the parole hearing. Again, we're fast forwarding from 2022 to 12/10/2024. He has the parole project show up. It is a new parole board. They have been denying left and right. There is no guarantee. It's not a shoo-in by any stretch of the imagination. You can also focus to see, does he stick to the same exact story? Does Mr. Randy Meyer insist on his denial? Also, what did you think of Nordyke? Nordyke was his attorney, and I really like Nordyke. I think he's the most impressive attorney that we see in Louisiana, maybe any of the states we cover. He's solid. He does not just do a cookie cutter copy paste approach for his clients, but I don't think he makes a reappearance. I don't know why, but anyways, let's jump in.
You are classified as a first felony offender, currently serving a 99-year sentence. Your sentence was commuted from life to 99 years in October of 2022. With parole eligibility after having served 25 years. So your parole eligibility date is March the 4th of 2025. You were sentenced in Jefferson Parish for a second-degree murder conviction. Mr. King, is all that information correct?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you. Would you take a moment, Mr. King, and I sat on when you applied for a pardon, I sat on that board and heard your story, but would you, for the benefit of my colleagues this morning, take a moment and tell us why you believe we should vote favorably for your parole today?
Yes, ma'am. To this day, I am very remorseful for the pain and suffering I caused the victim's family. I knew Boom on a personal level, and he did not deserve the way that he died. I take a full accountability for my actions that night. I'm just as culpable as the shooter, Dewey. I did retrieve the gun and hand it to Dewey when he asked for it. I just want to apologize to the state of Louisiana, the board members, and especially the victim's family by trying to circumvent the judicial system. It was never my intention. I know there's nothing I can say or do to justify my actions that night. I know I made a lot of bad decisions that night. And I know if I would have just made one correct decision, my life would have turned out so differently. But I cannot forgive what happened to Boom. He did not deserve that. And I think by countless of nights, of what I could have done different. And I just wish I never did the things that I did. It's so many things that I want to say to him, because we were never enemies. We never had disagreements. We just had different friends, and it hurts me to this day, especially when I took victim awareness and learned about empathy. I know my pain and my family's pain does not compare to Vung's family, and whatever I felt is 100 times worse for them. And I just try to do what I could best in my life to bring some type of peace to them, because if I could switch places with him, I would. And throughout my incarceration, I try to have my life to be a continuous journey of seeking forgiveness and try to make sincere efforts to make amends. I know I couldn't keep living like this, and I needed to make conscious efforts to better myself. So I took all the courses available to me, and I learned how to deal with my anger, my stress, how I resorted back to when I was stressed out. I tried to do some type of substance abuse to get my mind away. I learned how to better cope with my problems. I went through all the education that I needed to. I was able to attend college, got my degree. I became a social mentor. I mentor other people. I became a certified tutor, and I assist at least over 65 offenders to receive their GRDs. But after each night, each day, I say a prayer for Vung, and I just made a terrible decision, and I could have prevented this. I admit that. I could have not handed the gun over. I could have played stupid. There's so many different options I could have made that night, and I just kept making the wrong decision one after the other. And each day I do feel that pain.
All right, well, thank you, Mr. Kane. Let's ask the captain, what can you tell us about Mr. Kane?
Frank's basically the epitome of what this program is designed to do. He came here prior to being here. He only had 3 disciplinary reports. He's been here over 9 years. Has gotten himself through a lot of difficult situations with our program, has made it up to a very trusted position in our program, and has a solid plan of, if he is paroled, to continue being a productive member of society.
All right, thank you. We appreciate your input. We will hear from the folks that want to speak in support. First, we'd like to hear from Mr. Hunley.
Good morning, Andrew Hunley. I should note that, I have a personal stake in this because I've known Frank for about 24 years, I believe. We were both very, very young men. I'd like to believe we're still young men, but we were much younger men almost a quarter century ago at David Wade together. Frank is someone who, what you see is what you get, as far as what you see with his record. He's always been someone who strives to be the best in himself in that position. He could be within prison and take something accomplished and raise himself today. He's not someone who would come home and not go back to prison, actually an asset in the community. I don't know before he has some individuals. A lot of people who come home with separation see someone that has the capacity to meet those goals that he aspires to have. I should note that as you're aware, Frank's a few months away from his PED. It is Frank's desire, if he's granted parole, to be allowed to go to work release for the remaining time on his sentence. He has some skills and an opportunity to go into a work release where he can further those skills that would benefit him for when he comes home with some of the goals he has. Obviously, I'll let the board flesh that out some more, but I just wanted to go ahead and put that out early on, that it is his desire to finish his remaining time on work release if the board grants his parole, and then he would come to Louisiana Parole Project, where he would be a long-term client. He has no desire to return to Jefferson Parish and reside there, but to rebuild his life in a new community. And I'll stand by for any other questions the board may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. We do see that Ms. Sue Kang has been able to join us. Could we hear from Ms. Sue, please?
Good morning. I'm here with my parents. They're behind me. I don't know if you can see if they're blurred out, but I would like to say a couple of words on behalf of my brother. My name is Sue Kang, and I'm speaking on behalf of my brother, Frank Kang. I've known Frank for 42 years, and I've seen firsthand how much he has changed and grown over time. I feel confident in speaking to the character and the journey Frank has taken since his incarceration. Growing up, Frank was always a quiet, sensitive boy. I remember moments from our childhood, like Halloween, when he would hide behind me, too afraid to go through the haunted houses. He was surrounded by a close-knit family of 4 women, myself, my 2 cousins, Lucy and Sonia, and our sister, Linda. We shared a special bond, and this strong family support system has remained unwavering throughout Frank's time in prison. Lucy, Linda, Sonia, and my parents consistently visited him, and I always make sure to visit him when I'm in town. Frank has always been a studious individual, and despite the circumstances of his incarceration, he has remained focused on his education. He was on the verge of graduating as salutatorian of his high school class and was excited to begin his college education at Loyola University, Chicago in the fall of 2000. Unfortunately, he found himself in the wrong place at the wrong time, which led to his current situation. During his time in prison, Frank has not only earned a bachelor's degree with an impressive cumulative GPA of 3.98, but he has also dedicated himself to helping others. He taught GED classes to fellow inmates, served as a mentor in the re-entry court program at Angola, and achieved trustee status, eventually earning a transfer to the police state barracks in Zachary. These accomplishments reflect his commitment to personal growth and helping others along the way. Frank has evolved from the quiet, sensitive boy I grew up with into a patient, respectful, and humble man. In his spare time, he enjoys reading and writing and authored a fiction novel titled Awakens. His determination, maturity, and self-discipline speak to the person he has become. He has paid his dues and is ready for a second chance. I believe that Frank's transition back into society would be a smooth and successful process with the ongoing support of his family and friends. He has earned his place among us again, and I wholeheartedly support his opportunity for parole. He is a good man who has shown great potential, and I know he will continue to make positive contributions to his community and his family. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate those remarks. And we have Mr. Justin Jenkins. Could we hear from you, please?
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good morning. I'm Justin Jenkins. I met Frank in January of 2015 when I entered the prison system at Angola. I was in the reentry program under Judge Knight and St. Tammany, and I was scared when I got there. And so me and Frank, we're close to the same age and we're a lot alike, and he helped me to see that there was really nothing to be scared of, and it's just like living on the outside. And ever since I've been released from Angola in 2017, we stayed in touch. During that time, we became very close, not only as mentor and mentee, but we became friends. And one thing I noticed quickly about Frank is he never let his situation define him as a person. He would get up every day with a smile on his face, determined to be a better version of himself every day. We would work out together. He would teach me that your physical health is just as important as your mental health, and that's all part of, just being a better person. I can count numerous times when Frank has pulled me back from the edge because I was struggling with a drug addiction when I entered Angola. And, many other things that happened while you're incarcerated cause stress that you wouldn't normally have on the outside. So Frank would pull me back from the edge and, you know, talk me down. And I'm very thankful for that because he helped me make it through my program so I could come back home and be a better person. Frank was a GED mentor, and there were so many people in our program who had zero education, and he would spend countless hours tutoring these guys who literally had 5th and 6th grade educations and helped them get their GED. Me and Frank, we've talked about support for when he gets out, and I have a lot of connections with employers, and my job is actually about to start hiring soon. So he has a support system in my community. I live in Washington Parish now and work for International Paper. But if Frank were to be released on parole, he definitely has me as a support system. And I just wanted to say that people like me, we get chances a lot being drug offenders. I'm not a first-time offender. I'm a fourth-time offender. And I've been incarcerated and turned loose. The recidivism rate for lifers is so much lower than it is for guys like me. So I just hope that Frank can get a chance today. Thank you.
All right, Justin, well said. Thank you for taking the time to share that information with us. We appreciate it. Now, we'd like to hear from Ms. Hutchinson. Can you thank you so much for the brief that you gave us. It was very thorough and informative. So if you could just tell us whatever it is you'd like us to know today.
The potential in Frank to be great in our society and providing sanity.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Meyer, we'd like to hear from the DA's office, please.
Good morning, Randall Meyer, Assistant DA, Jefferson Parish. This is kind of a tough case for me. Generally, you know, I look not only do I look at the facts of the case of the crime, I also look and give a lot of weight to what individuals have done while they've been incarcerated, working to better themselves. But it's also a pretty easy case because in this particular instance, Mr. Kang continues to not be totally honest with this board. He stated in his statement that he's never was it his intention to deceive the justice system. And that's completely contrary to the facts. Many years after the verdict, he began stating he lied in his trial testimony that he shot Vaughn in self-defense. And the plan was that he and Mr. Hong made a deal the night of the murder that because Mr. Kang had no record, had a family with money, that he would get a lesser sentence. And that Mr. Hang, the shooter, would get a lighter sentence because he had a criminal record, but he would get a lighter sentence because they're going to deceive the system. So that's what they did. And Mr. Hang pled to manslaughter and was sentenced to 12 years in 2001. So he's now out of jail, and he was the shooter. Now at trial, Mr. Kang testified that he was, it was a self-defense case, and that he shot because it was in self-defense. So now here we are. Mr. Kang continues to state, continues to not be truthful with the board. Never his intention to deceive the justice system. But as a result, what he's doing is just that, and he's looking now to get his life sentence. He got it commuted, 2 years plus parole eligibility. Now he's looking to get out of jail after 24 years. And his initial intent with his deal with Mr. Hang, however you say his name, is going to come to fruition if this board lets him out today. His continued deception of the system must not be rewarded, and we think he should be denied parole today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Meyer. For the record, we also have opposition in the record from the Attorney General's office. And the victim's brother also, Mr. Min Wing, is also in opposition. So at this time, we'll go back to Mr. Kang. Mr. Kang will start our interview process with you, and your case has been assigned to me. I just have a couple of questions. Why did you plead guilty?
I plead guilty because
You didn't plead guilty.
I plead guilty because when I guess I got to start from the beginning.
Yes.
I pleaded guilty because in the beginning, when I was in the car and Dewey shot the person, he turned around to me. At first, he was saying, "This is how you handle your business. This is how you handle your business. You see what I do?" He said that nobody's gonna mess with us. Nobody gonna mess with us. And when he's after the shooting, he turns around and said that, "Look, I did this for us. Now you have to do this for me." He was saying that you know who we are. They know who we are. And if it comes down that your parents got money, you're very educated, they're gonna believe you instead of me. So when everything was done and we got to Dewey's house, I said I was gonna go home, and he was like, "No, you gotta stay here with me. You can't leave." He said, "We gotta get our story straight." I just wanted to leave from there. So he made me stay, and when I stayed, we went to James's house. Then when James came pick us up, Dewey would tell like, "Yeah, if the cops pull over, tell that Frank did it. Frank was the shooter." So as we went to we got pulled over by the police, and we was in the police station. They kept me and Dewey together. Then, and at the station, the police officer says that, "We believe you did this in self-defense. And do you know what manslaughter is?" And I said, "No." He said, "Carry 0 to 40. He means that 0 means that you won't do no time in jail." So in my mind, the whole time, I was so selfish and I was not thinking about nobody else. I just wanted to go home. I just wanted to go home. And I felt like when he said that they was gonna believe me, and I gave that statement. And the whole time I was in jail, lawyer told my parents, "If you pay me such and such, he's gonna win a not guilty verdict." So that's why I went in there and I said I did it. And as I look back, the main reason why I did it was because I was so selfish. I couldn't think anything but myself. If I said that, if I would have told the truth, I felt like I still would have done time. Like, I was supposed to go to college, but I just wanted to go home. And if I said, okay, I was with them, I felt like I still was gonna go to jail. And the only option was left for me was to get a not guilty verdict to go. It was just a terrible mistake, more than terrible. I know every reason that I did, all my actions were wrong. I should have just told the truth. I should have been mad. But I understand it was my selfishness that I just wanted to go home. And I felt that was just the fastest way. And that is my sole reason why I've said that I've done it.
Okay, and let me just clarify, I did ask you why you pled guilty. What I meant to say is, why did you confess? Because you were found guilty by a jury. And you've explained that to us just now. Thank you. So you mentioned that you have taken substance abuse. Were you a drug user?
I'm a crazy. I tried ecstasy maybe 3 times, 4 times, but right before I got 2 denial letters to early college acceptance letters, and that what made me reach out to the guys because they're like, "Well, I want to go relax." So that's why I made that phone call to James to come on, see what was going on. And he was like, "Oh, just come, let's just go to LSU together." See, if I would never made that phone call, I wouldn't even been at that club that night. So I feel like one of the triggering effect was that when I got the denial letters from colleges, it like that's what I wanted to do was like do drugs and drink to wash away my worries and my stress.
Okay. So let's move on. It was mentioned earlier that you wanted to try to do a work release or transitional work program and that you had some very ambitious goals. Would you tell us what your goals are? Tell us about that.
Yes, ma'am. As I planned, I separated it into 3 areas where I think is going to be beneficial to me. The first area is going to deal with community. So when I'm released, if the board grants me parole and I'm released, I'd love to go to the parole project and get involved with their organizations and volunteer whatever they need me to be. If that be at youth risk, to talk to them, go to church, cut the lawn for the elderly, feed the poor, cook for the poor or the homeless. That's one area. The second area is my family. To spend time with them. Like I told you, I was very selfish. I only thought about myself. I neglected my parents that worked so hard. One thing that when I came to prison, I never told my mom and dad I loved them until I got incarcerated. And I just want to expand how much I appreciate them and just spend enough time with them. And finally, for my employment, my big plan is to start a food truck or a restaurant that focuses on Asian American cuisines. And before that, I know that I had to get experience in the workforce, especially in food industries. And if the board grants, I'm in Tulsa West Baton Rouge on transitional work release, and they are planning locate a job for me in food service industry, and I'm gonna maintain that job when I'm released in March, and I'll be so basic. I'll be fully employed in a job that I want to do when I transition to the parole project in the food industry.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you you giving a lot of thought to it.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't have any other questions of Mr. King. I'll defer to my colleagues. Any questions? Any questions?
I'd like to call for executive session, please.
All right. We have a motion by Mr. Tillis for executive session. Could you do the roll call?
Who's second?
Second by Ms. Ledoux.
Yes. Mrs. Tillis?
Here.
Ms. Ramasa?
Yes.
Mrs. Ledoux?
Yes. All right, Mr. King, we're going to be in executive session for just a few moments to discuss confidential matters. Stand by. We'll be right back. All right, we have a motion by Mr. Tillis, second by Mrs. Ledoux to return to regular session. Is there any objection? Hearing no, we're back in regular session. It's 9:40 a.m. Mr. King, we are prepared to vote. And I'll vote first since your case was assigned to me. And, I voted for you back in October of 22. I was impressed with you then. I remain impressed with you today. I do appreciate, though, the opposition that has been expressed in the record by the Nguyen family and also by the DA's office. But I maintain my vote. My vote today is going to be to grant your parole after completion of a work release program, as you've indicated you want to do. I would also add special conditions that once you are fully released, that you do report to the parole project for their transition plan, that you do not reside in Jefferson Parish ever, and that you do perform community service work at least 8 hours a quarter. Mr. Close.
My vote is to grant also, and I concur with Mr. Renatza. I hope that you keep up the good work.
Mrs. Ledoux.
After reading nearly 300 pages of your report and considering all of the elements, my vote today is to grant parole with the same conditions Mr. Renatza imposed upon you.
Good luck, Mr. Kane.
Thank you so much.
Did you catch that sign that flashed at the end by his buddy? When I first saw that, I'm like, oh my God, did they pull a quick one on us? Is that a gang sign? And you know, I asked Sir Richard, I asked Jesse, and he's like, yeah, it kind of looks like a Latin gang sign, but Jesse's like, be careful because you know it also can mean much love, and because the right hand means love and much love, and I'm gonna take it at that. I actually liked the you know that testimony that his former, I guess not Selly, but friend gave. I thought that it was actually good. I thought Miss Renasa thought it was well said too. She even said so as much in the panel. So no, it wasn't. But that's what I first thought. I don't know if you caught that as well. But anyways, with this hearing, look, I'm happy that he was paroled. I feel that it was deserving of parole. I get what Randy Meyer's saying as well. You know, the idea that hey, you're gonna you know, he made a false confession, but then he went to trial and stuck with it. It wasn't until later in 2016 he actually filed an appeal to say, hey, I'm completely innocent. I didn't pull the trigger. And that went through an appeal process. And I was reading through it and bits and pieces of it. And it does turn out that there were eyewitnesses that were saying that he didn't pull the trigger the entire time. So there were some complications, but he wasn't going to win that appeal. Oops, like I changed my mind. But you know, let me just read through a little bit of this with you, and then also show you that website, and then finally I'll show you those not really bloopers, but uncut version of the flowers. So, fact and procedural history: on March 4, 2000, the defendant Frank Wang and a group of friends were involved in a confrontation with another group of individuals at a nightclub. After security broke up the fight, the participants left the premises in 3 separate vehicles, each traveling in the same direction. A defendant who was a passenger of one of the vehicles fired several shots into one of the other vehicles. One of the shots struck the driver of the vehicle in the neck and severed his carotid artery. And I guess he would have had seconds to live at that point. On April 6, 2000, a grand jury indicted the defendant for 1 count of second-degree red rum. On November 16, 2000, Jefferson Parish found the defendant guilty as charged. Man, it happened so fast, huh? On August 8, 2001, the defendant moved for a new trial based on the trial's court refusal to strike a prospective juror, blah, blah, blah. But again, see, there's just not much in, you know, there are many appeals. There are many different items on here. I'm not going to review it, but I will go over that website that was brought up at the beginning. I thought that was interesting. Miss Bonnie Jackson doesn't miss a beat. She knew about the website. She brought it up, and I didn't think he was totally honest in that response, frankly. Remember, what did he say? Oh, I had nothing to do with it. I just gave her an interview, and she took it for what it was. But there is a note in this website that I really did appreciate what the author wrote, and that's why I wanted to bring it up. But again, it is a weird case, but his story, I do believe it. I don't believe he fired the shot. I believe all of it. What's hard to understand is why he would have stuck through with it. Now, maybe he was in fear for his life. Maybe he was involved with the gang. I don't know. It must be a really tough spot. Let's play the scenario that he really didn't know the guys that well. He was going to go off to school. Life was going to be great. He hangs out for the night. He gets pressure. He hands the gun over. The guys, but now he's in a jail waiting for trial. And people are getting through, to him in this gang, like, you don't rat or we're going to XYZ. And now he's stuck in a really difficult place where he lied. The detective said, just say it was self-defense. We've seen those interviews a million times. He's like, yeah, okay, 0 to 50. Okay, yeah, self-defense. And then all of a sudden he can't change his mind because he's being protected by the gang in jail. If he says anything else, I mean, he could have gone into protective custody, but maybe he thought his family was in danger. I don't know. It's like you can make a movie out of this. But there you have it. I'm always happy to take blasts in the past for you. There's a playlist down below that's called Blast. Take a blast at the class. I'm always happy when it's a Miss Bonnie Jackson hearing. It's unfortunate when her microphone for some reason wasn't the best. They're still using a potato for a microphone, I guess. But he was granted parole, and I hope he makes the best of it. And with that, I'll let you go.
Is that good, or you want to do another?
No, that was good. I thought that was good.
I thought we chose pink. I thought we chose pink.
No.
You sure you don't want to do another just in case?
Do you want to? Well, we can. I thought this was natural, but do you want to see it? I don't think you can repeat natural.
No, you can't repeat natural.
No.
Okay, so keep that.
All right.
That's funny.
I hope it recorded. Oh, look how good you look.
How do I get out of here?
Here. You like my fancy
You
studio?
didn't have that. That's actually really funny. I totally thought you chose pink.
But isn't purple your favorite color?
Well, it's pink and purple.
It's not really purple. I should know by now.
It's dependent.
All right. I love you.